Miles, how are you doing?
I'm sore after that nice workout you just ran me through.
Hey, that was awesome. I felt like I was going to explode using the lightest possible weights I've ever lifted. So we were doing something right. That's a good way to start the day.
Absolutely.
So you brought up a topic of male depression to talk about today, which is a huge downer, but might as well start there. Because it's topical. Mental health for men is making the circuit in terms of the health outcomes for men being down across the board, whether it's employment statistics or length of life, quality of life, and a lot of metrics around just any measure of success in the modern age. So I'd love to talk about it. In fact, you turned me on to a book called I Don't Want to Talk About It, which was about male depression.
Classic book.
And so you've got some insight and some experience with how male depression differs than female depression or maybe general depression. So yeah, man, and did you, when it comes to that, well, I'm going pretty fast here. I'll let you talk about
It's all good.
What you got from it, whether or not you could relate, in your experience with your mental health and in the content of the book, and what you think about this epidemic we're going through right now.
Yeah, it's a doozy. It's probably been with us forever. Depression's probably a survival adaptation of some sort, but we have so many confounding factors. You have to take the biological versus the psychosocial when it comes to depression. That book, No Mr. Nice Guys, depression is just one aspect of that book. That book is about caretaking and codependency and all kinds of other issues, not getting your needs met, childhood trauma, blah, blah. It's very good. And of course, depression is one of the themes. And how is male depression and female depression versus anyone's depression? That's a tricky one to answer, but I think guys were taught to not express emotion, right? We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. That's kind of towards the No Mr. Nice Guys.
This is from the book?
This is from my experience, from my learning in this field, in my PhD program, master's degree program, and personal experience. And he does talk about this in the book, where guys have these needs. We have needs that want to be met. And when we go through childhood trauma, sometimes we're told those needs are too much, and we kind of stuff them down and act like nice guys in order to be seen. So we bury our needs thinking they're too big, and then that's just got to go somewhere. So it causes a lot of problems. A lot of times it's denied or repressed anger comes out that way. It's anger towards inward. Sometimes people say that. But you also do have to factor in the biochemical aspect. Like sometimes it's a neurochemical issue. Maybe you have a dopamine, serotonin issue going on. Sometimes low testosterone. That's a big one these days. Chronic porn use. That's another one that can cause it. Addictions can cause it.
Well, is this chicken or the egg? Because you hit right what I was gonna ask you about, which is like if you're raised in an environment where your needs are inconvenient for your caretakers, and it would be better if you didn't have those needs. You're disincentivizing expression.
Correct.
And vulnerability, right?
Correct.
So if you're, I have a feeling that the behavior of subverting your own humanity, just your simple human needs and whether they're emotional or physical or whatever they are, I think that if you start subverting that pretty young, then that's going to create a sort of like a domino effect that you're going to experience later on. Is like you said, anger issues or addiction, compulsive behavior, whatever. Does that sound right, or are those not related at all?
Well, always related. Chicken and egg is a good way to put it. But sometimes we have to figure out, is it psychosocial stress kind of things, trauma, or is it neurobiological. Sometimes if you get your sleep right, you get your testosterone right, you start working out, that it goes away. You feel better. And the things you rub up against in life that are hard get manageable.
Sure.
So when I see patients these days, I'm always asking about this stuff. For women, someone's like, "Hey, have you had your thyroid checked?" "Oh, no, I haven't." Like, let's talk to your PCP and let's get that checked, because sometimes that can cause depression. They get that checked and like, "Oh, I feel better, and now I can more easily manage the psychological stuff I came here to work with."
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get the body sorted, then it's much easier to work with the psychosocial stuff. If not, it's like gas in the fire. So you can work both angles at the same time, and to figure out the chicken or the egg, sometimes it's hard. So you got to work on both. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, like you're in a pattern of behavior that creates a neurological or an endocrine or biofeedback loop, right? So if you stay up all night, you're gonna be sideways the next day, and then when you're sideways the next day, you're gonna make bad decisions around like food and alcohol and relationships, and then that's going to screw up your neurobiochemistry or your chemistry. Neurobiochemistry. I lift weights. I don't quote or make up science quotes during the day, but the chicken or the egg, or the one hand washes the other, is the way I like to put it. It's like if you have a muscle imbalance that creates altered joint mechanics, and that altered joint mechanics creates some weak tissue, and that weak tissue gets torn. Now you're going to have to fix all those things, but you have a torn calf, or you have a sprained Achilles, or you have a whatever. So you have to deal with the injury, the superficial injury, and you have to go back and relearn and re-educate that joint to be able to function properly. And that can all happen at the same time. That can be one or two interventions, or those each could be steps depending on the severity of it and what you're talking about. So it's any of the, and it can go backwards. The injury can cause an altered joint mechanic, right, which can cause muscle imbalance. So it can go up, clockwise or counterclockwise around the circle, but you have to stop the cycle some point, and you have to interdict and create reverse momentum on all those things to get the symptoms to stop and to get to improve the function of the whole.
Stopping the cycle. That fits the metaphor. Yeah. Get off the merry-go-round, basically, somehow.
So, one of the common mistakes that you see men make when it comes to confronting their own depression, or hearing about the people in their family that are depressed?
My mind went right to addictions. The good Band-Aid that we all use, because the problem with addictions is they freaking work, like, acutely. The pain goes away for a hot minute, but then in the shadows it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now you got a bigger behemoth to deal with, and that's another big merry-go-round, because you're trying to now up the dose of whatever the substance or the behavior is to get the same desired effect, and now you have a big monster to deal with. Now you feel even more depressed, and then you start beating yourself up, and on you go down that rabbit hole. Sleep is another big one. We can't regulate our emotions well if we don't sleep. That gets all thrown out of whack. If you can't run away, you can't repress or obsess on your feelings. That's another one. Like, you don't want to go la 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 la. I don't have any problems. I'm gonna drink them away. I'm just gonna go on Xbox, or I'm just gonna shove it down. Like, you can do that acutely, yes, but long term, that's called compartmentalization. Most men know what that is. Yeah, ask men what's compartmentalization, and they kind of know right away. That works. Like, say you're in combat and your buddy gets shot, you can't fall apart right there. You got to get off the X, get going. But later you have to open up the compartment, or it's just going to bleed into the other compartments and come out in a 14th over compartment in some weird ass swing. You're like, why the hell is this behavior happening? Oh, it's because of this one thing I have not been addressing.
Yeah. I didn't know what that was. Compartmentalization, and obviously, the military coaches you to be able to do that.
100%. Yeah.
And
it's necessary in the battlefield.
I remember a chaplain giving a speech to us when we were in theater, and the speech was something to the effect of, hey, you're going to get phone calls and you're going to get letters, and people's lives are changing because you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to hear all that, and you had this sweeping gesture where he took, like, you're kind of clearing off a cluttered table and like pushing all the silverware to the side. He's like, I need you to just move that aside and just keep it there for a second. And
keyword.
And focus on what we're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
And then when we were on our way to leave to go on R&R, which is like a little break in the action if you're there for 6 months or a year. At the time, I think you got a R&R break between 4 and 6 months into your deployment, and they got a different speech, which was, when you go to get picked up from the airport, you might have someone pick you up from the airport with a 6-pack of beer in a bikini saying, I've been waiting for you. And you might be greeted with somebody who has their own shit to deal with because you're not there.
Or nobody.
Or no one. Right. And then the message was like, now you have to deal with all that stuff that you were putting aside. And I thought it was a very good speech for people who thought they were probably going to Mardi Gras and
welcome home
instead of what is much more realistic, which is a check-in, with the rest of your life.
Welcome's back.
So the mistake is compartmentalization. The mistake is just not addressing it.
Yeah, or obsessing, like too much. Like sometimes you should use compartmentalization. If you're stuck in a pit, you're having intrusive thoughts, you're ruminating, that move's actually okay. Like, hey, go help someone else get out of self, go for a walk, get out of your fucking house. Like environmental cues are huge. If you're in the same environment that triggers the same depressive thoughts, get out of it. Do something different, break it up. You can sort of compartmentalize that way for a moment. That's on the other end of the spectrum. You want to be somewhere in the middle often. My own therapist calls it turning towards the parts, internal family systems. Feel them. Feel the pain. What is this symptom trying to tell me? We always try to destroy the symptom in our culture rather than like, well, what is it trying to tell me? Thoughts and feelings aren't 100% accurate, but they're trailheads to information. So turn towards them. And you have to know if that's obsessing or repressing. You have to know what the difference is.
So we'll talk about the middle road, because obviously that's the answer.
Yeah.
But let's talk about why people make these mistakes. And this is so classical. It's counterintuitive, right? When we're depressed, we say things to ourselves like, I don't want to bother my friends right now because I'm Debbie Downer. Like, I had a friend who is a great example for actually a great example for emotional health, but he was going through a big transition in his life, and he said to me out loud, I don't feel like I have a community. And
big. Yeah.
And he had one back home where he raised his kids, but he didn't feel like he had one, whereas in his new life. And it was so nice to hear that articulated directly, and I was impressed because I hadn't heard somebody express so vulnerable and honestly about what they were going through. And that's, for me, that's the medicine, right?
That is the medicine.
You just face it. It's counterintuitive to reach out to the people when you're feeling that way, and not reach out for them to distract you, but reach out and for them to just share what's really going on. That's a counterintuitive piece. Physical activity, because when you're tired and you feel like trash,
why do you want to go?
The last thing you want to do is like go outside and be cold and be in the sunlight.
Low energy.
Yeah. So changing your physical state, connecting with other people, helping, contributing something. Those are all, and it's counterintuitive because you don't want to move, you don't want to do anything. What feels right is to eat a jelly donut and watch a movie. Although, let's be honest. So I think what happens to me if I indulge. So let's say I indulge in that, and I order a pizza or buy some junk food and watch a movie, I will enjoy it for about 55 minutes.
Yeah.
And before the movie's over, I'm ready to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
That's
like,
cute.
yeah, I'm like, okay, that's enough.
That's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't do as good as you just did.
Yeah. But I think it's okay to have a breakdown in discipline.
Yeah, a cheat day or a rest day.
Yeah, it's good. And I think back to the counterintuitive piece, I think that some people beat themselves up for not wanting to go to the gym and not wanting to start the project or do whatever. And it's like, maybe God forbid you actually, like you said, need a rest day. You know, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing to be able to do.
Then you beat yourself up for not doing it too, which causes more depression. I have also a sneaking suspicion that this is a modern day exacerbation of a problem of depression. I think historically we had like dudes would sit around the fire, talk about the hunt, talk about their wives or whatever, and they'd process, you know, and they had that connection and support. It was just ready made. Now we like don't even talk to our neighbors. Like, no wonder we feel so isolated and depressed. We feel like we're going to be a burden. Like, how many times does someone hit you up and like just being open and like you said, I don't want to talk to you. Like, no one's doing that. And if they're doing that, that's not a good friend. Like, every guy gets it and they actually appreciate you sharing. And then if they're sharing, then, well, you might share back, and then you're connecting and going deeper and having a conversation of depth. And that can start the healing process. You're not isolating. So I think it's a modern day problem on top of this.
So basically, when you're, if you follow what feels right, you isolate, you numb, and you avoid.
Yeah.
And if you actually do the counterintuitive, you take the middle road, and you face you face what you're dealing with, it's over faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over, but you ameliorate the feelings of loneliness or unworthiness or whatever's bothering you. You ameliorate those feelings a little bit, right? And it's still real, but you peel a layer of the onion of grief.
Correct. Yeah, grief's another cause of depression for sure.
And I think like, man, the people. There's people in my life who prioritize their feelings, and I'm not joking. This is going to sound like a cartoon when I say it out loud, but I have people in my life that are very close to me that when we go to make plans, they'll say, well, we'll have to see what I'm feeling. I don't know if I'll be able to be there when I say, or we know in the schedule. And I laugh, which to me that means no, and I don't put anything on my calendar because I have high executive function, right? because what's in my calendar is what's happening in my life, barring a hurricane. Yeah. But but people in my life who it is up in the air, and their feelings are going to guide everything, and
that's a trap.
Their life is a reflection of that. Their health is a reflection of that. Their finances are a reflection of that. Their relationships are a reflection of that, being driven by feelings. And that identity, I mean, we can call that person, Eddie the emo, or we can call that, or what I call them is a loser. You're a loser if your job, you only get to keep your job if you feel like it. You only get to keep your, relationships if you feel like it. It's like that means your feelings are making your whole life. And your discomfort, realistically, your discomfort and your fear is guiding your life.
Yeah.
And that's, it sounds harsh, but I've watched these people, I've watched their lives evolve over 40 years, and it doesn't go well, audience. It doesn't go well if it's based on your feelings. Now, your feelings, your emotions give you important messages.
Right.
But I just am fired up. I don't think anybody's emotions are telling them to be homeless.
Correct. Yeah, they're not 100% accurate. Nor are your thoughts. Nor should you ever identify with your thoughts or feelings or your host. It's like identifying with your politics, right?
Identifying with identifying with your thoughts and feelings in politics. Exactly right. And what was told to me and my family was, oh, we have depression. Everyone in our family has depression. Mm-hmm. So we're just, that's just the way we are. That's just the way it is. Yeah. And it cracks me up. And it's like, I have panic attacks. If I have a lot of anxiety, and if I don't manage it, it turns into panic attacks.
Sure.
And I, of course, I've had depression. Everybody who's lived through life is going to have some depression.
Hell yeah.
So that's all part of it. But I think the piece that I was decoupled from is the identification, over identifying with it. It's like I can manage anxiety, I can manage depression, and that doesn't mean I'm a rock star all the time. Absolutely not. But I have the self-compassion to make commitments that I can stick to regardless of how I feel.
That you said something great. Self-compassion. Yes.
I said a lot great, Miles.
Should do a podcast.
We should do a podcast. Exactly right. So the unwanted identity, I think it's unwanted identification with these things. Like you said, it shouldn't be your way of life shouldn't be, what's the new thing? Neurodivergent. Like, it could say, as a neurodivergent person, I'm like, hey, you can have whatever variance or deviance from the standard you want.
Deviation, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
But you don't have to be
I wouldn't identify as a neurodivergent person.
Yeah, if you victimize yourself, or identify as like your Myers-Briggs typology, right? Oh, sure. I like that person you can never make plans. I'm a J. I have to have strict plans. I can't be spontaneous. Like, well, bullshit. You can work that.
Now, I think like you can simply, to get just a little bit of distance from the personification of that, you could just say, a personalization of it, you could just say, I'm a member of the veteran community. I'm a member of the neurodivergent. I have, as a TBI, as somebody who's been a victim of TBI multiple times.
Something like this.
Yeah, so you can say that's been my experience, or I've experienced these things.
But it's not frozen in time.
Yeah, it's not nominal. The word for that is nominalization.
Big words.
Big words, huge words today. Nominalization. So that's not who we are.
Correct. Yeah, it's easy to do that. And if you ask your limbic feeling brain if you want to do something that's hard, what do you think it's going to say?
Yeah, no.
It's always no. 100% of the time. It wants to just feel good. And whatever it perceives as good, it's going to do. So there's the avoidance piece. There's the addiction piece. Things like this.
So the way the counterintuitive process is to, if I'm feeling, here's a literal tactic that I use when I'm faced with something like serious grief. Like my grandfather died 10 years ago, and it just really shocked me, and I just sat, and grieved for a couple of days. And one of the things I said to myself, like within a day or two, I was like, I need to tell somebody, or I'm not going to tell anybody for a long time.
Ooh, good insight.
And so I picked up my phone, I texted one person, and I sent him a text saying, hey, I'm dealing with a death in the family. And he called me immediately, and
good friend.
And yeah, great friend. And that made it real, and that made it a part of the conversation that I wasn't afraid of to start anymore.
What would have happened if you would have not called and kept it in for a long time?
Well,
if you didn't do that, I mean, a lot of people do that.
Here's the takeaway. All the stellar people in your life, you give them a wound, because what you're saying to them is, I care too much about how you perceive me, right? I care too much about seeming like I have everything together. Ego. To be vulnerable.
Ego.
And so you create a distance, and so you wound all your close personal relationships because you can't share that part of you. And you wound yourself because you build another brick into that story about how no one gets me, and I'm somebody who is beyond help and
depressed.
Yeah, it's either too significant of an ego or too insignificant, or whatever your source of
narrative is.
Yeah, whatever your narrative is. So it hurts the people around you. It hurts you. It hurts me. It would have hurt me. And I I had learned that lesson enough times to share that, and I'm so grateful that I did. So my new rule is, if I experience a loss, I text 1 or 2 or 3 people. So if I'm working with a important client and they and I lose them, or they fire me, or the project ends, I reach out to another coach who's had similar experience, and I say, hey man, I just had to say goodbye to somebody I really enjoyed working with, or I did a launch and it didn't go well. I didn't get anybody to sign up for my program, and then which is, if you've been in business, you'll have people that don't like you. You have offers that don't go well, and that's part of it. But it connects you. The mistakes are what humanize you, and build. So that's my new process. Is I text up to 3 people, and that starts to get rid of or speed up the grieving process.
It's a pain shared, pain divided statement.
Yeah, and Tom Bilyeu.
Great podcast.
Bilyeu. Impact Theory. He says, he has a quote. I'm sure he's got thousands of really great quotes, but one of my favorite is, your success will be directly correlated to the half-life of your negative emotions.
Yeah, some truth there.
So that is to say, the longer you hold on to your garbage and carry around your baggage, the slower you're going to move, and the harder it is going to be for you to succeed. And that's always been true in my book.
There's that negative feedback too. Then you're more depressed. That's
right. So
and anxious.
That's my strategy for tackling it head on. Because if I'm addressing the things that are bothering me head on, that doesn't snowball into things where I feel like I have to numb and avoid them. And some things are, I think there's 2 kinds of negative trauma. There's freight trains and earthquakes. And freight trains come through fast and are gone, like a death in the family, or or
shocking,
a short-term thing. And then earthquakes, where they change the lay of the land.
That's a good one.
Like COVID is an earthquake.
Yes.
Your community will not be the same.
Mm-hmm.
A divorce is an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Your family will not be the same. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It just means it will not be the same. And the structure that you have created is going to be gone, and you have to create a new one. So there's earthquakes and freight trains, and the being able to lean into those makes the dealing with them less difficult. Mm-hmm. Which is why I think COVID created so many alcoholics, was because we were so isolated.
And divorces.
Yeah.
People on top of each other, they probably might not have got divorced, but now that you're living with that person forever, so...
Oh my God, this is what you sound like?
Yeah, exactly. I can't escape to the office for 8 hours.
Yeah, and I think that's the path of the warrior, is to just confront whatever you have.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's in front of you, deal with.
It takes courage. And what is courage? Acting in spite of fear, isn't that the definition? Or bravery? Bravery is acting in spite of fear, and then it's a courageous act, something like this. You feel the fear, but you do something anyways, and you don't have to have that courage beforehand. It actually confirms that you're courageous by being brave, daring greatly, Brene Brown. Then you, after you've done the act, you go, oh, I guess I'm a courageous person because I did it.
People, this is a whole nother side pack, the side podcast episode, but people treat you differently based on the context, right? And so if you're actually confronting your shit, people treat, that's like the Viking mentality. It's like, if you face something head on, you immediately have respect by everybody in the clan. It doesn't matter whether you win. If you just don't run, everyone gets it. Everyone gets that you did your best.
Yeah, your wounds are not on your back. They're on the front.
That's it. Mm-hmm. My buddy and I started a boxing ring when we were in Roseburg, Oregon, and we would do these random fights in different parks and people's houses and things like that. And I remember I fought this guy who outweighed me by like 50 pounds. He was like in his 20s, and he couldn't get anybody to match up with him. And so I was kind of running this ring or organizing this ring.
Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight Club. And so I went like one round, someone had a watch and we did like, I was like, okay, I'll give you 3 minutes, or whatever. And this dude was big and he was swinging and I was ducking and moving and trying my best to not get knocked out.
Tired him out.
And he knocked me out. Like he hit me. I blocked it. I guarded it, and it still punched through the guard and just, dude. Somebody who outweighs you by 20 has got you.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I also didn't have the best technique, so even though I tried to block it, I got a. I mean, I don't know if I got a concussion, but he flattened me, and everybody gave me a standing ovation when I stood up because. Yeah. What are you supposed to do? like they were like, that's amazing. You even took that.
Yeah, you all motherfuckers get in the ring.
Yeah, exactly. And what a great sort of note to end on. It's like if you confront your grief or your depression, it doesn't mean you win. It doesn't mean like it goes away. It just means that you change the narrative, and now the narrative is like it's okay. You're living with it. Like I'm feeling depressed right now because I lost someone close to me or a relationship or I haven't invested enough energy in myself to have that self-respect right now that I want. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean it's going to go away tomorrow, but then the narrative changes when you start to act into it.
It breaks down the old one a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Even if it takes getting knocked out. It will feel you got knocked out probably.
100%. Yeah. Well, and if you're lying to yourself, if you think you win every bout of cognitive dissonance and if you win every internal conflict you have, then you have a short memory.
Yeah. Maybe too many TBIs.
Too many TBIs, yeah.
Or you have narcissism or megalomania. Although I'm pretty sure you're aware that something's not right. That's an overcompensation.
That's right. So when it comes to male depression, we should have led with this, but is this something you've confronted in your life, depression?
Oh, over and over and over and over and over. Still continue to do so. Yeah, I think I have the lovely fortune of having both the neurochemical aspect and definitely had the adverse childhood experience aspect, trauma aspect. Getting the body dialed, sleep dialed, health dialed. It helps tremendously, and then it's a lot easier to work on the psychosocial, going to therapy, getting coaching, whatever it is that you need to do. Do men's groups, have friendships. That's probably why 12-step programs work so well. It's just the peer
accountability.
Yeah, the 12 steps themselves, anybody could do and get something out of. You can leave the religious stuff in or out if you want, but if you do those 12 steps, even if you don't have an addiction, you're going to be a better human. But just having that peer support group. Men and women, men, women, doesn't matter. Just to talk, just to get it out, just to process. You're facing, like the Viking, you're facing the other warriors. You're right there. The wounds are on your face, you're not running and ducking. You didn't die and stabbed in the back, and that's what you do when you go for addictions. That's what you do when you go for the Xbox, go for porn. Someone finds you dead and your wounds are on your fucking back. Like you didn't stand to that, you ran from that.
Yeah. And that's that's it. Like, I think that there's a danger in there's a false nobility in like keeping things to yourself and keeping the attention off you, which first of all, at this day and age, if you are someone who avoids attention, good job, you made it pretty far.
Yeah, sometimes that's okay.
But the quality of attention is important.
Yeah.
And the reason for you embracing your relationships and creating those positive relationships is so that you can help each other through this hard part of being human.
Yeah, and you don't want to go the other way and be a burden and say, do my feelings for me. That's kind of what the Mr. Nice Guy book talks about, like finding a partner that will do your emotions for you. But that's a no-go. Then they feel like your mom and then your relationship's hosed. But it's telling them what's going on inside you and then what you think you're going to do about it.
Dang. I love it. I love it. So the books are the most. Give me the books and the authors that you would really like for this topic.
For depression, well, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I think it's Donald Glover, sorry, Mr. Glover. Your book's amazing, but I always get mixed up with Danny Glover, the actor, because I've had some tea guys too. And then Man Talks by Connor Beaton, very, very good. And then there's a classic one, I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real, I believe his name is. It's written in the 90s. That's a good one on male depression. I mean, there's so many. If we were in my office now, I could just pull off 10, but we're in the gym today. Those three are good starters. Yeah, I don't know, what have you found that's good?
For depression,
Or anything adjacent to this conversation? You mentioned a good journaling one the other day about changing narratives. That was good.
yeah.
Tim Moore, is that?
Oh, Jim Lehrer, The Power of Story.
That one,
Yeah, that's a very good book for understanding what effing narrative you're in. Like, what's the story you're telling yourself about yourself? Mm-hmm. And it's difficult. It was difficult work. It's difficult work to like actually stop for a second and describe the wallpaper of your life, because the beliefs that we have, we don't question anymore because we think that's just reality. Mm-hmm. When in reality, your beliefs can change just like you can change your philosophy. Mm-hmm. And your life is really just a reflection of your beliefs. And that is like painful if your life is going really shitty, but kind of obvious once you start to write out your story and you see what your rules are about being you. Mm. Because if your rule is, I'm only worthy of love if I'm helping someone, I'm only worthy of love if I'm providing value, I'm only worthy of love if I'm, if I take no days off, or if I'm, we have all these rules and they're unconscious and they're actually difficult to describe. Mm-hmm. And if you actually write out what your story is about who you are, I mean, maybe I'll read mine. It's like scary. It's scary. That's I should read it. It's like bizarre and also intuitive. Like you would totally get that the way I grew up. Like my story was, the highlights were like my story that I was this burden on all the people in my life. Because I was going around couch surfing, living, in place to place, and that I was unwanted essentially. And you totally get that by the way that I grew up, but that's not true because everybody wanted to hang out with me. So I was America's guest. I was a blessing. I still get phone calls. Hey, why don't you come down and stay with me and eat all my food? Yeah, Power of Story. It's a good one, and addressing and looking at these beliefs and what they are, which is kind of what we'll be doing. This podcast is getting into beliefs and like why we make the mistakes that we're making and how we show up as men and how that doesn't help people, and hopefully we could do something different.
Heck yeah.
Well, awesome, Miles. Thanks for the chat. Great kickoff conversation, male depression. So if you're listening to this, you're not alone. You can do stuff about it. Don't make the mistake. Don't isolate. Reach out. You can. We don't have any resources. Let's put some resources in the show notes.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Basically, find friends, find groups of men and women, just people to connect with, talk to, get out of self, go help people. Just do something different. No matter how small. Get out of the environment, get out of your house.
Bang. Get out there. All right, man. Thanks, Miles.
Yep. We're out.